Of course I do.
Let's talk about your record. It came out, was it last Friday, was it?
Mm-hmm. Yes.
What was your day like releasing a record in the climate that it is being released in?
Well, I mean, you still do the normal press and stuff like that, but there were no CD release parties or shows. Hopefully, that's going to change soon. We're going to start playing shows. I actually have one next weekend. It's my first.
Oh, good.
In a year, so I do play the Grand Ole Opry a lot. So that I've been playing the Grand Ole Opry consistently since COVID.
Right.
But anyway, this will be my first full show.
Are you playing with an orchestra? Or are you presenting these songs from the album here?
No, with the Grand Ole Opry, you're going to do more country music,
Sure.
just how I started. I mean, I've been playing the Opry for years, but they have about a 6-7 piece rhythm section, and but I'm hoping that I can get out in the next year or so and do some of these songs with an orchestra. That would be great.
That would be pretty cool. So what brought you to the point of wanting to make Every Star Above, these kind of remaking Billie Holiday's Lady in Satin album?
Well, a producer named Fred Mullen approached me about doing an album for his new boutique label, and we went through a couple of different scenarios. And then he said, "Well, what would you think if we recut the songs from Billie Holiday's Lady in Satin? And what would you think if we could get Sammy Nestico on board?" And
right.
And Lady in Satin was one of my all-time favorite albums. And Sammy Nestico was someone that I'd wanted to work with for a very long time. And because I was in Nashville, I didn't know him. Didn't really have, anyone close to me that knew him. So when he presented this as an idea, I was like, wow, if you can get Sammy Nestico, I would love to do this idea. So by the end of the day, he had him on the phone, and Sammy he was 95 years old. And he said,
right. Yeah.
He said, "Oh, I'm so old. I wish you'd called me a year ago." He said,
I like that perspective.
He's like, "Let me do 2 songs. Let me try 2." So we did 2, and then 2 turned into 4. And
right.
Next thing you know, he's got 6 and then 8. And then he finished all 10. And it was really a beautiful thing to see him so energized and just so happy
right.
to be writing and enjoying the process, and it's really a great thing.
Very cool. Very cool. So then you ended up going into a studio with a 60-piece orchestra in Nashville.
Mm-hmm.
What was that experience like for you?
It was great. It was it's an old church. Ocean Way bought it, and so they were crammed in there, and we all were. But it was really, really the best musicians in Nashville. And I mean, they put out a heck of a sound. It really was incredible to stand there with that orchestra and sing. And the way the arrangements are written, you kind of have to do it old school, live on the floor. That's the way, that's kind of the way you do it in this type of situation. And so it was really, it was just magical. Scott Lavender was the conductor. I did not know him that well. I'd only met him a couple of days before, but I really feel like he really locked into what I was doing and did just an incredible job, because there were many times that he was just leading me in the orchestra. And I'll say this, it was high pressure.
Why is that?
Well, okay, country singer.
Yep.
Singing the Great American Songbook with Sammy Nestico charts.
Okay.
and and a big orchestra. So I had a lot of things that were, kind of heavy on my mind. Like, okay, I can't be the weak link here.
Right. So,
and
you thinking of yourself as a country singer, and you're singing these songs that are the Great American Songbook, and it's an album connected with Billie Holiday. Did you have to think differently about how you sang and how you approach the songs than what you usually do?
I really didn't. country songs and the Great American Songbook are very similar. The
Right.
subject matter is very similar. Maybe the melodies are more sophisticated with the Great American Songbook, but I grew up listening to all those old songs, country and the songbook, so I kind of know how to approach it. I don't think I'll lose any southernness through
Right.
that, but there are a lot of people from that era, the songbook era, that were from the South as well. So
Yeah. And did you listen to Billie Holiday much, kind of to prepare yourself for this, or did you try and stay away from it?
no, it was a record that I already knew from
Right.
when I was in my 20s. That's when I first heard it. A good friend of mine who played guitar in my band. Actually, he was a studio guitarist who really played on tons of records here in Nashville. Played with Roy Orbison, the Everly Brothers, Patsy Cline. Played on all their records. When I was about 23 years old, he handed me that record and said, "You should listen to this." He said, "Because in the future, you may end up wanting to do some of the standards, and you might want to record with an orchestra." And so I fell in love with the record. I loved her version of "I'm a Fool to Want You" and "For All We Know," and her phrasing was just incredible. But I didn't try to emulate her on this album. I think that would just be ridiculous, and it would just be ridiculous. But she definitely influenced me in the way that she wasn't afraid to show her vulnerability.
All right. So I think I heard you kind of describe yourself as a torch singer these days. Is that accurate, would you say? And if so, what does that mean to you?
Yeah, I think so. I think singing big songs that have a lot to say, and songs that have a little bit of drama. And I think that's something that I've always been, or no matter the genre. Because I loved the big voice gals like Kate Smith and
Right.
Patsy Cline and Connie Francis. I loved that era of singing, like in the 50s and the 60s. So Etta James, Dinah
Right.
Washington. So I was kind of schooled on that type of music.
Uh-huh. Now I noticed that the 10 songs that comprise the album are not necessarily in the order that they were on the original album. Was there some discussion, some thought put into how they appear here?
Yeah, I think it was basically how they fit together,
Right.
what sounded good with each other. And we had heard the songs for a little while, and so just from when the engineer would make burn the CDs, you would hear certain songs that you would think would sound, oh wow, that sounds nicely together. But I always wanted "But Beautiful" to be the first song.
Love is funny, or it's sad, or it's quiet, or it's mad. It's a good thing, or it's bad, but beautiful.
It's just a glorious arrangement. It just sets the album up nicely.
It does. I mean, it just shouts lush at you when you hear that.
It does. It's just like an MGM movie. It's incredible. And then Bill Schnee recorded it and mixed it, and he's a very famous engineer, and moved from Los Angeles to Nashville. And I worked with him in the mid-90s. He produced my first record.
Oh, really?
My first country record.
I recognize his name as I think he did Ringo Starr's album that was a big hit back in the 70s.
Yeah. He's worked with so many people. I mean, he recorded and mixed "I Will Always Love You" by Whitney Houston. He's done a lot of big records, so we've been friends for many years, and I'm just so thrilled that he was able to record this. I mean, this is something that was right in his wheelhouse.
Right.
He had recorded many, many, many orchestras through the years, being out in LA. And so it was great that he moved here.
Right. Now, as a vocalist, when you have, are you singing live with the orchestra with you in the studio or wherever?
Yes.
Yeah. So that's got to be a lot of pressure, because if something goes wrong, you've got 60 people that got to kind of reboot and start over again. It's different than a little rhythm section sitting behind you. How does that affect you?
Right. Well, I think the main thing is to be prepared. You go into it knowing what you're going to do, so there are no surprises. And Sammy was great about that. He sent out the arrangements, like a mock-up with, synth instruments that kind of gave me an idea of how they would sound and where to sing and where the instrumentals were and that kind of thing. So I took a couple of months and really got into it and sang the songs until I was comfortable. And then by the time I got to this session, of course, there's no comparison with a real orchestra and what he sent me. It sounded like little hobbits. But anyway, so very, very inspiring to hear that sound. So I could just sit back and enjoy the process instead of worrying about where I have to come in or if I'm going to mess something up.
Right.
And I wanted to be relaxed.
Okay. Now, of course, Billie Holiday herself has kind of been the subject of some media attention thanks to the film, The United States versus Billie Holiday. Have you watched that?
Yeah.
Did you check it out?
I have.
What'd you think?
Yeah, I thought it was really good. I thought Andre Day did a great job, and it's just another side of Billie that I didn't know.
Right.
I didn't really know a whole lot about Billie Holiday when I cut this album, other than The Lady in Satin. That was really, I'd heard several of her records from when she was a younger woman, but really Lady in Satin was when I really first started listening to her. And so since I did the record, I have been watching some of the documentaries and the movies and that kind of thing. And she was just an extraordinary woman. She had a very hard life. And I hate that she had to deal with some of the things that she had to deal with, racism and drug addiction and those kinds of things. But she definitely left a great body of work, some wonderful, wonderful records. And she continues to inspire, the next generation of singers.
Right. So you sing all different types of music, as is obvious by this. Is there what do you prefer to sing and why? Is there something that just feels natural to you?
I just like good songs. I kind of consider myself more of a mid-tempo singer, ballad singer. I do love a ballad, but I think just songs that make me feel good. When I do shows, I tend to mix genres just to keep it from getting too boring or too predictable. I was talking earlier about how country songs with the standards work very, very nicely in a show. So I do that, and I kind of go. It came out in 2017, called "Strange Conversation," and that was a totally different kind of thing too. It was a little, sort of like a folky pop,
right?
And then also had elements of soul. Recorded it down in Muscle Shoals.
Oh, nice.
And and worked with a couple of guys that had worked with Robert Plant. So it's a totally different vibe. But I enjoy just stretching out and trying different things as long as I can be authentic. I think,
right?
Why not?
And do you do much songwriting yourself?
For my record deal. What's that?
Do you do much songwriting yourself?
Not a whole lot. I do sometimes, but it's, my thing's singing, and I like interpreting songs, phrasing, acting, the whole, getting into the lyric. That's my whole thing. But I enjoy songwriting sometimes. It depends on the situation, but I would hate to have the pressure of trying to come up with my own songs.
Right.
So, yeah, no one needs another mediocre songwriter.
Well, it's kind of, now I'm thinking about it, some of the best songwriters, say Bob Dylan or Carole King, they weren't known for their vocal expertise. They were all about the song, and it's kind of, I don't know if you can kind of do both.
Yeah, I mean, being a vocalist is it something that I guess sounds real sexy. I don't know, because I mean, the whole you got to play and write and sing, that became a, you had to be that.
Yep.
But but I'm just a vocalist basically. That's my gig. I stick with that.
That sounds good. And are there other vocalists that you look up to, look to see what they're doing, admire, or whatever?
Well, I've always loved Alison Krauss. She's
Right.
an incredible person. We've collaborated
Oh,
quite a bit over the years. And then from time to time, I work with BJ Thomas, another great inspiration and wonderful person. Dwayne Eddy's another guy that I work with from time to time. So a lot of kind of old school, iconic people. I've worked with a lot of folks like that. And of course, I grew up listening to their music and love their music. But I'm always looking to find somebody that's going to blow me away.
right.
And so I like all different types of music.
So are you thinking about what you're going to do next, your next release?
I am a little bit, but I had 2 records out during the pandemic. So
Right.
I figure I'll take a little break.
Yeah. You're all pandemiced out.
Yeah, I'd like to tour. That's what I want to concentrate on more than anything. And then I'll figure out, it'll become apparent what I need to do next. So it'll come together.
Fantastic. Well, thanks for talking to me about the record. Thanks for putting it out. As a matter of fact, I went down to my local record shop here down the street, and they had the vinyl and sitting up on the shelf. So I was
awesome. That's great.
Yeah, it was very cool.
Wonderful. Well, I'm really, really excited. I'm so glad that I made the record. It's one of the best albums that I think it is the best album I've ever made. I'm just so thrilled that I got to work with Sammy, and it was one of those things that just kind of fell into my lap, and I'm so glad it did.
Excellent. All righty. Well, thank you.
Thank you.
We'll hear from you soon again.
All right.
Bye-bye.
Take care. Bye-bye.